Everyone keeps talking about AI agents, but if you're a beginner, the real question is not, are AI agents the future? The real question is, which one should you actually start with? Because some of these tools look easy, but get expensive or limiting fast. Some look complicated, but are way more powerful once you understand them. And some are technically impressive, but probably not where most beginners should start. So, in this video, I'm comparing 5 different AI agents and automation platforms: Claude, Zapier, Make.com, N8N, and OpenClaw. And I'm going to grade each one across 5 categories: cost, ease of setup, beginner friendliness, power, and flexibility. But I'm not just going to throw a giant scorecard on screen and move on. For each tool, I'm going to break down one category at a time, explain what actually matters, and then give it a score. By the end, I'll give you my final rankings for beginners, my ranking for power users, and the one tool I'd personally recommend starting with if you're trying to learn AI automation right now. My name is Christian. On this channel, I break down new AI tools, AI agents, and automation platforms so you can understand what's worth learning without wasting hours testing everything yourself. If you want clear, practical AI tool breakdowns without all the hype, subscribe to my channel. Let's lock in for the next 20 or so minutes and figure out which of these AI agent platforms actually make sense for beginners. Let's start with the easiest tool on this list. First up is Claude, and Claude is the odd one out in this comparison because when people say Claude, they might be talking about a few different things. They might mean the regular Claude chat app, they might mean Claude projects, they might mean Claude code. So before I score it, we need to be precise. The regular Claude app is not a traditional visual automation platform like Make, Zapier, or N8N. But Claude does belong in this video because it is one of the easiest ways for beginners to experience agent-style work. Claude can research, plan, analyze documents, organize information, write, reason through tasks, and work inside projects with custom instructions and uploaded context. That makes it feel agentic. But the regular Claude chat app is more of an AI workspace than a full automation builder. Where Claude becomes more clearly agentic is with products like Claude Code and Claude Cowork. Claude Code is Anthropic's agentic coding tool. It can understand a code base, make changes across files, run commands, test things, and help ship software. So if we are talking about software agents, Claude Code is the more accurate product to point to. It is the best place to learn how to work with AI. But if you want to build real automations or custom agents, you eventually move beyond the basic Claude chat app. Let's start with cost. Claude has a free plan, and the pro plan is listed at $20 per month, with higher max, team, and enterprise options for heavier users and organizations. For most beginners, that is strong value. You can do a lot with Claude before you need anything more advanced. The reason I'm not giving it a perfect score is because Claude is not priced like a full automation platform. You're paying primarily for access to Claude as an AI assistant and workspace. So for cost and value, I'm giving Claude an 8 out of 10. For ease of setup, Claude gets one of the easiest scores in this entire video. You create an account, open a chat, and start using it. That's basically it. There's no complicated onboarding. For a beginner, this is about as frictionless as it gets. So for ease of setup, Claude gets a 10 out of 10. Friendliness is also where Claude is extremely strong. The interface is clean, the interaction is natural, and you do not have to understand automation logic before getting value from it. You can just say what you want. And compared to something like N8N or OpenClaw, the learning curve is almost non-existent at the beginning. The main thing beginners need to learn is how to prompt clearly, how to provide enough context, and how to review the output instead of blindly trusting it. So, for beginner friendliness, Claude gets a 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about power. Claude is extremely powerful for thinking work. If you want to research something, summarize documents, analyze information, Claude is one of the strongest tools here. And if we include Anthropic's broader ecosystem, Claude becomes much more agentic. So the power is definitely there. So Claude is very powerful as an AI assistant in agent ecosystem, but the regular Claude app is less powerful as a complete automation platform. For power and compatibility, I'm giving Claude a 7 out of 10. Flexibility is where Claude loses points if we're only talking about the normal Claude app. Claude gives you a lot of flexibility in how you think, write, research, analyze, and work with documents. But compared to automation platforms, it gives you much less direct operational control. You are not visually designing complex workflows. You're not easily building multi-step automations across dozens of apps. But for a beginner using the regular Claude interface, that flexibility is not as accessible. So Claude is flexible as an AI workspace. It's flexible as a developer platform, but it's not very flexible as a beginner-friendly visual automation builder. For flexibility and control, I'm giving Claude a 5 out of 10. So my final take on Claude is simple. If you are brand new to AI agents, Claude is probably the easiest place to start, not because the regular Claude app is the best automation platform, it isn't, but because it teaches you how to work with AI before you start building more technical workflows. But if your goal is to build real automations across different apps, Claude is not where I would stop. It's the best starting point for learning how agentic AI works, not the best full automation platform. If this breakdown is helping you understand these AI agent platforms more clearly, hit the like button so I know to make more videos just like this. And if you're trying to learn AI tools, AI agents, and automation platforms without wasting hours testing every tool yourself, subscribe to the channel. I'm building this channel to help beginners figure out which tools are actually worth learning and how they work and where to start. Now back to the video. Next is Zapier. Zapier is probably the most beginner-friendly traditional automation platform in this video. If Claude is the easiest place to start thinking with AI, Zapier is one of the easiest places to start connecting apps together. So if you are a beginner and you want the least intimidating no-code automation platform, Zapier is one of the safest options. Let's talk about cost. Zapier is a free automation plan with 100 tasks per month. The professional plan starts at $19.99 per month when billed annually. For Zapier agents, there is a free plan with 400 activities per month, and the pro plan is listed at $33.33 per month when billed annually. So Zapier is not impossible to start with. The free plans are useful for testing, and for beginners, that is important. But the reason I'm giving Zapier a lower score on cost is that Zapier can get expensive as you scale. For cost and value, Zapier gets a 6 out of 10. For ease of setup, Zapier is excellent. This is one of the things Zapier does best. You pick a trigger, you pick an action, you connect your apps, and Zapier guides you through that process in a way that feels pretty clear. Compared to Make or NA10, Zapier usually feels less intimidating the first time you open it. And that matters because beginners do not want to spend their first hour just trying to understand what they're looking at. For ease of setup, Zapier gets a 9 out of 10. Beginner friendliness is also one of Zapier's strongest categories. Zapier is built for people who do not want to code. The language is simple, the interface is clean, and the trigger action structure is easy to understand. If you are new to automation, Zapier helps you build confidence quickly because you can make something useful without understanding a lot of technical concepts. And that is a big advantage. The reason I'm not giving it a perfect score is that Zapier can become confusing once you start building more advanced workflows. So, for beginner friendliness, Zapier gets a 9 out of 10. Zapier is powerful, but in a very specific way. If power comes from simplicity and integrations. If you want to connect one app to another, Zapier is great. Zapier is powerful for practical no-code automation, but it is not the most powerful tool on this list. For power and capability, Zapier gets a 7 out of 10. Flexibility is where Zapier starts to feel more limited. It gives you enough control for most basic automations. You can build multi-step workflows, you can add filters, you can connect a huge number of apps. But at a certain point, you start to feel the edges of the platform. So Zapier is flexible enough for most beginners, but it is not the best tool here if flexibility is your top priority. For flexibility and control, Zapier gets a 6 out of 10. My final take on Zapier is this. If you want the safest no-code starting point for automation, Zapier is a strong choice. It is polished, easy to understand, and great for beginners. But if you care about long-term flexibility, advanced workflows, or getting the most power for your money, I think there are better options. Zapier is the easiest traditional automation platform here, but is nowhere near the most powerful. Now let's talk make.com. And this is the tool that I think has the best overall balance for most beginners. Make is more visual than Zapier. It is less intimidating than N8N. It is much more of a real automation platform than Claude. And it is way more accessible than OpenClaw. That balance is why Make is so interesting. It gives beginners a visual way to understand automation logic without immediately forcing them into the most technical version of the problem. And with Make AI agents, it is also moving directly into the agent space, starting with cost. Make is pretty strong. The free plan includes 1,000 credits per month. The core plan is listed at $12 per month for 10,000 credits. And Teams is listed at $38 per month for 10,000 credits. For a beginner, this is solid value. You can test a lot on the free plan, and the paid plans are still accessible compared to many other automation platforms. For cost and value, Make gets an 8 out of 10. For ease of setup, Make is good, but not quite as easy as Zapier. When you first open Make, the visual builder looks clean, but it can also feel a little unfamiliar. It takes a few minutes to understand how everything fits together. But once it clicks, Make starts to feel very logical. You can see the workflow, you can see how the data moves, and you can visually understand what is happening from step to step. That makes Make easier than N8N for most beginners, but a little harder than Zapier. So, for ease of setup, Make gets an 8 out of 10. For beginner friendliness, Make also gets an 8. The visual canvas is one of the biggest strengths. When you build a scenario, you can actually see the workflow. That makes it easier to understand what is triggering the automation, what happens next, and where the data is going. The downside is that Make can still get confusing when scenarios become longer. Iterators, arrays, error handling, data mapping, it can all overwhelm new users. So, Make is beginner friendly, but definitely not effortless. You still have to learn the platform. For beginner friendliness, Make gets an 8 out of 10. Power is where Make becomes really compelling. Make is not just a beginner toy. You can build real workflows with it. You can connect thousands of apps. You can work with APIs. You can build AI-powered automations. And with Make AI agents, you can start adding more agentic behavior into your workflows. That gives Make a lot of practical power. For power and compatibility, Make gets an 8 out of 10. Flexibility is another strong category for Make. You can build simple workflows, but you can also build fairly complex systems. You can start with no-code modules, then gradually move into more advanced logic. Make gives beginners room to grow, and that is the main reason I like it. For flexibility and control, Make gets an 8 out of 10. My final take on Make is that it is the most balanced platform in this video. It is not the easiest, and it is not the most open-ended. But for beginners who want to build real AI automations and still have room to grow, Make is the best overall balance. If I had to recommend one tool to a motivated beginner, Make would probably be my pick. Next is N8N, and N8N is where comparison gets more serious. This is not the easiest tool on the list. It is not the most beginner friendly, but it might be the most powerful automation builder here. Let's start with cost. N8N's cloud pricing is based on workflow executions, not individual steps. That matters because one workflow execution can include unlimited steps, which can make pricing feel more predictable than tools that charge per action or task. The starter plan is listed at $20 per month when billed annually. The pro plan is listed at $50 per month when billed annually. And the business plan is listed at $800 per month when billed annually for companies that need more scale and self-hosted business features. So the value can be excellent, especially for technical users. But for beginners, the pricing story is a little more complicated because the best value may require self-hosting or understanding executions. That is why I'm giving N8N an 8 out of 10 for cost and value. Ease of setup is where N8N starts to lose points. If you use N8N Cloud, the setup is much easier. You can create an account and start building without managing your own server. But if you want the full self-hosted experience, the setup becomes more technical. And even inside the platform, N8N takes more effort to understand than Zapier or Make. So, for ease of setup, N8N gets a 5 out of 10. Beginner friendliness is also a mixed category for N8N. On one hand, N8N has a strong community, lots of templates, a visual workflow builder, so it's not impossible for beginners. A motivated beginner can absolutely learn it, but compared to Claude, Zapier, or Make, the learning curve is much steeper. N8N expects you to understand more about how workflows actually work, and that is both the strength and the weakness of the platform. So, for beginner friendliness, N8N gets a 5 out of 10. Power is where N8N shines. This is one of the strongest platforms in this video. You can build complex automations. You can connect tools in ways that are harder to do in more beginner-focused platforms. And because N8N gives you deeper control, it feels less limiting as your workflows get more advanced. This is why technical users love N8N. So for power and capability, N8N gets a 9 out of 10. For flexibility and control, N8N gets the highest score in the video. This is the platform I would choose if flexibility was the main priority. You can self-host it, you can customize deeply, you can work closer to the technical layer, and you can build workflows that are much harder to create in simpler no-code platforms. That level of control is extremely valuable. But again, the trade-off is that you have to learn more. N8N gives you more freedom, but it also gives you more responsibility. For flexibility and control, N8N gets a 10 out of 10. My final take on N8N is this. If you are a beginner who wants the easiest possible start, N8N is not my first recommendation. But if you are a beginner who is willing to push through the learning curve because you want long-term power, N8N might be the best platform on this list. Finally, we have OpenClaw. OpenClaw is the most niche tool in this comparison, but it is also one of the most interesting. This is not like Zapier or Make, where you sign up and start building visual workflows. OpenClaw is more of an open source, personal AI assistant environment. It is designed for people who want more ownership, more control, and a more technical assistant setup. That makes it exciting, but it also makes it much less beginner friendly. For cost, OpenClaw scores very high. The project is open source and listed under the MIT license. So, the software itself is not priced like a normal SaaS platform. This is a major advantage, but there is an important catch. You still need a model provider API key. So depending on whether you use Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, or another model provider, you may still have very high usage costs. And because this is more technical, the real cost is not just money. It is also time, setup, and troubleshooting. For cost and value, OpenClaw gets a 9 out of 10. Ease of setup is where OpenClaw becomes much harder to recommend for normal beginners. The doc says you can install it, run onboarding, and start chatting with your assistant in about 5 minutes. But that assumes you are comfortable with a more technical setup. For the average beginner, this is a very different experience than opening Claude or creating a Zapier account on the internet. So for ease of setup, OpenClaw gets a 4 out of 10. Beginner friendliness is OpenClaw's weakest category, and that does not mean OpenClaw is bad. It just means it's not built for the same kind of beginner as Claude or Zapier. If you are comfortable troubleshooting, OpenClaw can be really interesting, but if you are brand new to AI automation and you just want something that works immediately, this is not where I would start. It is much less polished for beginners, but more exciting for people who want to experiment with personal agents in open source AI assistant infrastructure. So, for power and capability, OpenClaw gets an 8 out of 10. Flexibility is one of OpenClaw's biggest strengths. Because it is open source, you have much more ownership than you get from a closed SaaS tool. You can configure the environment, you can connect channels, and you can go much deeper if you have the technical ability. That makes OpenClaw one of the most flexible tools in this comparison. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because N8N is still the more complete workflow automation builder for more practical automation use cases. For flexibility and control, OpenClaw gets a 9 out of 10. My final take on OpenClaw is this. It is probably the coolest tool on this list for tinkerers, but is probably not the best tool for most beginners. If you want to just start learning AI automation without getting stuck in setup, I would start somewhere else. So, after going through all 5 platforms, my final recommendation is actually pretty simple. If you are a beginner trying to learn AI agents, AI automation, or just how to work with AI at a higher level, I would start with Claude. Claude gives you the easiest way to understand what working with the high-level AI model actually feels like. You're not just learning one chat app, you're getting into Anthropic's ecosystem. The regular Claude app is where you learn how to think and work with AI. Claude Projects gives you a more organized workspace with custom instructions and uploaded context. Claude Code lets you scale and do agentic coding, where Claude can understand a code base, edit files, run commands, debug issues, and help you actually build software. And Claude Cowork is where Anthropic is moving toward workplace task delegation. Start with Claude. Use it until you understand how to prompt well, how to give context, how to review AI outputs, and how to structure tasks. Then, as you get more comfortable, you can scale into Claude Code if you want to build software, Claude Cowork if you want help with workplace tasks. That's what makes Claude different from the other tools in this video. With Make, Zapier, and N8N, you're mostly learning workflow automation. With OpenClaw, you're experimenting with a more technical open source assistant setup. But with Claude, you're learning how to work with one of the best AI models in the world inside an ecosystem that is clearly moving toward more powerful agentic work. And for beginners, I think that matters, because the future of AI automation is not just dragging modules together, it's learning how to delegate work to AI systems, give them the right context, connect them to the right tools, and use them to think, build, research, code, and execute more effectively. That is where Anthropic is clearly heading. If this helped you understand which AI platform actually makes sense to start with, hit the like button so I know to make more breakdowns just like this. And if you want clear tutorials on AI tools, AI agents, and automation platforms without wasting hours testing yourself, subscribe to my channel. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.